Alright, welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to be covering Unit 1, Lesson 2, where we really compare and contrast the difference between equations and functions. And we're also going to determine how we figure out what's going to be the input and what's going to be the output to these functions. So let's first start by kind of doing a little bit of review and remind ourselves what an equation is. So an equation is a situation where one variable is introduced. And an example of that could be like x plus 2 equals 5. Something like that. So that's going to be an equation, right? And you guys have seen equations. A function describes a situation. Functions describe situations where one variable depends on another variable. And you can just write that sentence down if you're taking notes in your notebook. And this word depends, maybe underline it because that's going to be important. So for example, a circle, the area of a circle depends on how big the radius is. Another example is the amount of money that you get on your paycheck depends on the number of hours that you work during that pay period. Another way of saying that is the amount of money you have in your paycheck is a function of the number of hours that you worked. Or the circle's area is a function of its radius. Your grade is a function of how hard you try, right? Or your grade is a function of your attendance, right? Okay, good. So let's actually look at some examples, and I want you guys to practice determining what the input is and what the don't look, everyone. For some reason my things are, there we go. Okay. Well, we have more, so we'll do these quickly since the answers were already provided accidentally. All right, so the area of a circle and the radius. So which one depends on the other? Which depends on what? Right? So the input is going to be the radius, and the area of the circle is going to depend on that radius. The number of hours you work and the amount of your the amount of your paycheck depends on the number of hours you work. So the number of hours is the input, and the output is the amount that you see on your paycheck. So how much you eat, that's kind of input, what you input into your body, and your weight depends on how much you eat. The number of cavities you have depends on how often you brush your teeth. So how often you brush your teeth? 3 times a day, like me, once between every meal, right? How often you brush your teeth, that will determine, or the number of cavities depends on how often you brush your teeth. Let me scroll down here, and I'm going to grab our other examples that I have just waiting. I'm going to scroll these up so that, did we already do some of these? Oh no. Let's well, once for the input, twice for the output. And I want you guys to try these. Take a moment, pause the video, try them yourself. Alright, so I'm going to assume you guys tried these. So the number of years of school you complete and the amount of money you make. Now again, this isn't a perfect science, Most billionaires dropped out of high school or college, I know. The number of years of school you complete, but on average, the amount of money you make depends on, so that's going to be double underlined because it depends, and the number of years, right? The circumference depends on the diameter. The circumference is how long around a circle is. That's has a formula. It's called 2 pi r, or sometimes it's just pi times the diameter. The perimeter of a square depends on one of its sides. The amount of caffeine you consume. So my heart rate depends on the amount of caffeine. I'm drinking a coffee right now. I feel my heart rate going up. The amount of light a plant gets and its growth. So the amount of light is the input. Its growth is the output. Your attendance is the input. How successful you are at school is the output. So you guys may have seen stuff like this before. We have a little bit of vocab that I just want to do at the end here. There is vocab associated with input and output, and you use this stuff a lot of times in science or physics classes, right? The input of a function is called the independent variable. The input is also called in math the domain. The output of a function is called the dependent variable, because this depends on whatever you input. And in math, the outputs, usually, maybe there should be an S here, all the outputs and all the inputs, right? All the inputs are called the domain. All the outputs are called the range. And I definitely want you guys to have this box written down, either on a piece of paper, your notebook, or the notes papers that I have for you guys on Google Classroom. So with that, I will see you guys in the next one.